Okay, so I'm just going to introduce Amy. My name is Rebecca Fleischman. Director of Enriched Parenting. And one of our main initiatives right now is the webinars. And our hope is through webinars, we can create a platform for further education and empowerment of one to be able to take control of their own health and well-being. And it's also a great platform where it's interactive and people can have access to asking their questions and from the experts. And we're hoping that this will just be a real tool for others to be able to further their own sense of knowledge and empowerment. And today, we're really excited. We have Amy Rozen here, who's a board certified classical homeopath and has been, I think you've been working for over 10 years.
25.
What's that?
25.
Oh, 25. Oh my goodness. I don't know why I saw. Okay, so 25 years. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have the Remedy, is it the Remedy Center? Is that right?
Yeah.
In New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone out there in New Jersey, you can always contact Amy, her practice after. It's at the bottom, right? All your contact information, you can put it out there. And I'm just going to let you get started. Yeah, so I'm going to mute myself now, and hopefully, and I guess we'll open it up to questions at the end. You can post your questions during, and then we will magnify the questions at the end. So if you don't have to hold your questions, you can actually just put it in the chat box, and as she's presenting, and that way we can then address the question.
So homeopathy is integrated into the national health services in many countries like Brazil, India, Mexico, Pakistan, Israel, and Switzerland. In India, where it's used most prevalently in the world, there are 100 million people that solely use homeopathy for medical care, and there are over 200,000 registered homeopaths. In the United Kingdom, over 10% of the population uses homeopathy, which is over 6 million people. And in the United States, the National Institute of Health reports that over 6 million people use homeopathy, and many of those for self-care, which you can too. Over 1 million of those people are children and 5 million adults. So here you see there's many famous people in history that, including 11 American presidents and the royal family of England, all use homeopathy, and many of them have very long lives. Let's see. Okay. Also, the World Health Organization says that homeopathy is the second most practiced form of alternative medicine in the world. So if you've been using it, you're in good company. Homeopathy, the pros are that it's gentle, it's effective, non-addictive, there's no side effects, very cost-effective, no risk of overdose, environmentally sustainable, immune system remains intact, it's often rapid, complete, and permanent results, and only infrequent treatment may be necessary. Lastly, it heals both the symptoms and the cause of the illness. So compared to allopathic medicine, which is considered conventional medicine for the most part, conventional medicine is based on the theory of treating through opposites, where homeopathy is based on the theory of treating through likes, like cures likes. So in allopathic medicine, illness is treated in isolation. This is why you have different doctors that each deal with different parts of your body, and oftentimes they don't talk to each other. Whereas in homeopathy, we deal with the whole person, and we try to find a remedy that is right for the person, not only just for the part or for the separate disease. We believe that, there's the saying that suppressing a body symptom is like unplugging a car's flashing oil light. When the symptoms of the body are the body's mode of expressing, it's the language of the body. We need to listen to that language and go deeper. So homeopathy treats individuals as a whole. Here's a painting of, let's see, it was painted back in 1857 by Alexander Bateman. It's called Homeopathy Looks at the Horrors of Allopathic Medicine. So back in those days, in the mid 1800s, there were quite a few horrific practices that were being used. Here we have this painting depicts some historical figures and personification of, on the right, the homeopathy, and you have in the on the very right of the screen, there's a picture of the founder of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann, and in that day, the practices of bloodletting and purging and administration of substances that often worsened the condition or were fatal. So this is, out of this time was when homeopathy was born. Samuel Hahnemann, who's painted there, he in 1796 invented homeopathy and who rejected these centuries-old practices. By the 1900s in the United States, there were a great surgence of homeopathy and practitioners in schools. There were 22 homeopathic colleges around the United States by the turn of the 1900s, and over 15,000 practitioners of homeopathy. By the at the beginning of the 20th century, there was through the early decades, there was a homeopathy started losing its use with the advent of penicillin, which was considered the magic bullet at the time, and other antibiotics, as well as a lot of controversy, or let's say conflict, between the homeopaths and back then the allopaths. There was the HMA, which was attacked by the AMA, and laws that were passed that made it very difficult for homeopaths and for schools to remain in practice. So by the late 20th century, around the 1950s and 60s, there were less than 50 homeopaths practicing in the United States. It nearly completely fell off the map. However, at the end of the 20th century, into the 21st century, there was a great resurgence as the public became disillusioned to antibiotics and other forms of conventional medicine, as antibiotics become less effective over time, and as well as other pharmaceuticals. Okay. So here we have a slide that is explained that homeopathy is safe and effective for all, for adults, children. One of the pictures looks like it didn't come through. That was a picture. So these are actually my children when they were little, and also this other one, which is more recent, who, of course, they were raised on homeopathy. And this other picture, which you can't see, is a picture of my dog. So animals, even plants, it's used for crops. It's pretty amazing. I don't really know. I don't do much of that myself, but there are homeopaths that do. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay? Just checking.
Yes, I think so. I think everyone can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. So a lot of times by the general public, by many people, even by many doctors, sometimes I hear say homeopathy is misused, the term homeopathy. It's used as a catch-all phrase for anything natural. Like, there's a bottle of vitamins. Oh yes, it's homeopathic. Or a bottle of herbs. It's homeopathic. But that's actually not correct. Homeopathy is a very specific form of medicine. So what I want to clear that up today, so you know exactly what it is and what it isn't. I would say that something like holistic medicine is more of an accurate catch-all term that can be used. And within the holistic branch of medicine, you have mind, body, emotions, spiritual, let's say. There are different types. So here I have acupuncture, homeopathy, herbal medicine, holistic nutrition. And within homeopathy, there's also a few different branches and different techniques and modalities. There's different opinions of how it's practiced. I personally practice almost all classical homeopathy, which is more of the single remedy approach. And then there are others that use more polypharmacy, and that's something where you would find in the stores where you, let's say, pick up a cough formula and may have like 10 different remedies in it. As a classical homeopath, it's more about finding the one specific remedy that's the best match. Okay. So I'd like to go a little bit into the principles of homeopathy. Here's a picture of Samuel Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathy, who was a German physician lived 1755 to 1843. He, in the end of his life, was in Paris, France. He started in Germany. And there are four principles that I think are the most important when you're studying homeopathy. The first one is the vital force. Second is the law of similars. The third is the minimum dose. And the fourth is the totality of symptoms. Okay. So the vital force. Homeopathy is within the tradition of vitalistic healing in the world. We have vitalistic traditions go back to ancient medicine, ancient times, and it states that there is a life force, that living beings have a life force that animates us, and it's through that life force that not only we heal, but also that we can get sick. So in Eastern medicine, acupuncture also works within the vitalistic tradition. Homeopathy is a Western form of vitalistic tradition. Some people also mistakenly claim that homeopathy is Eastern medicine, but actually it's not. It was born in the West. So other vitalistic traditions in the world go back to ancient Egyptian medicine, Greek philosophy, and Hippocrates, 400 BC. Talked about the vital force, and today we have things like Reiki and therapeutic touch, which also use the principle of vitality, and within science and quantum physics, it would be equivalent, we think, to something like the electromagnetic field. So principles of science are coming together now in modern day with what ancient healing systems have known. So we're able to explain things more and more. The vital force is an invisible, immaterial, yet dynamic force which animates the physical body. Hahnemann called it the essence of illness, says the essence of illness is a disorder of the vital force. So since the essence is that there's a disorder of the vital force primarily, and that manifests in physical symptoms and also other symptoms, emotional, mental symptoms, in order to heal, we need to be able to have a medicine that can affect the vital force. And through the process that we use as a homeopathic potentization, which I'm going to get into, we can stimulate the vital force for healing or healing response. Let's see here. Also, I have examples here of Ayurvedic medicine called prana, Chinese medicine, the qi, and even in the Torah, we have the life force of the flesh is the blood. So it alludes to the life force. And we have Rabbi Nachman of Breslov talks about the vital spirit. He says, from the very beginning of life, there is a vital spirit in the heart which causes it to contract and beat. The beat affects all the blood and the fluids of the body. It beats in all the limbs of the body, just as the wind blows over the sea and beats and stirs the waters, so they do not stagnate. I thought that was beautiful. And the Ramban says, as long as health is stronger than illness, there is a greater chance that the body will be healed. The question is whether we are giving our bodies the right conditions and the right atmosphere to heal. So here he alludes to both the vital force and the treatment of the underlying cause of illness, a person's susceptibility, their constitution, rather than just treating the plant, you have to treat the soil. And that's in homeopathy as well. So I'd like to talk for a minute about paradox, because there is quite a bit of paradox in homeopathy. I think that actually life is a paradox, and that's why when you get to a paradox, then probably you're getting somewhere near the truth. And I'm going to talk about a couple paradoxes that exist in homeopathy. So a paradox is a seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or a proposition that, when investigated or explained, may prove to be well-founded or true. So the first paradox of homeopathy is the most important tenet is the law of similars. which states, "Let like be cured with like, similia similibus curantur" in Latin. That which shall make sick shall also heal. So here we have some pre-Hahnemann homeopaths, although Hahnemann was the one that coined the term homeopathy. These doctors were practicing based on the law of similars. Paracelsus was a 15th century German-Swiss physician, and he was also considered an alchemist of the day, which they had. And he stressed the power of nature to heal. He said, "You there bring together the same anatomy of the herbs and the same anatomy of the illness into one order. This simile gives you the understanding of the way in which you shall heal." Then we have Hippocrates, which we consider the father of modern medicine. He says, "Through the like, disease is produced, and through the application of the like, it is cured." So the law of similars, some examples of the law of similars in Exodus 8. The Lord said to Moses, "Make yourself a serpent and put it on a pole, and let whoever is bitten look at it and live." Moses made a copper snake, put it on a pole, and whenever a snake bit a man, he would gaze upon the copper snake and live. And in the Mishnah, Rabbi Matya ben Harash permits the victim of rabies to eat the lobe of that dog's liver. A bit controversial, but it was something that happened. So 2 examples of the law of similars in Judaism. The law of similars, some examples of remedies that we use, to give you an idea. So some of you may have used the remedy Allium cepa. It's made from the red onion, and it's a big remedy for hay fever or in colds that have very watery eyes, burning eyes, watery nose. All of the symptoms, if you were to cut a red onion, you know that you have those same symptoms: burning eyes, watery. Those are the symptoms that Allium cepa, the remedy, will treat. Then we have something like arsenicum album, which in its crude form is a poison, arsenic, but in homeopathic form, it's safe and effective, and it's used by adults, children, many people safely all over the world for things like poisoning, food poisoning with diarrhea, anxiety, fear of death. These if you were to ingest arsenicum, you would have those same symptoms. Coffea cruda, the coffee bean, which would cause active mind, insomnia, is the #1 remedy for insomnia, racing thoughts. And Rustox, made from the poison ivy plant, is used to treat poison ivy. It's used to treat itchy skin rashes and other types of skin vesicles, as well as other things. Okay, so moving on to the second principle in homeopathy, the minimum dose, which is also the second paradox. Less is more in homeopathy. It's very minimalistic. Above all, do no harm. So we work at a very minimalistic dosage so that we don't cause any harm. And the remedy is taken in extremely diluted form through the use of what we call potentization, which is the way we prepare remedies into high dilution. And the higher the dilution, the stronger the remedy, and hence the paradox. That's one that people always seem to have a hard time wrapping their heads around, and you may be as well, that the more a remedy goes through the process of dilution, the stronger the remedy becomes. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Let's see here. Someone asked the question, can someone repeat what the Ramban says? I missed a slide. Let me see if I can get that back for you. All right. Here it is. If you want to take a look, Sarah. As long as health is stronger than illness, there is a greater chance that the body will be healed. The question is whether we are giving our bodies the right conditions and the right atmosphere to heal. So things like clean air, good nutrition, a healthy environment. These are all just as important. Okay. Okay, so I'd like to talk a bit about potentization, which is the way a remedy is made. Let's see here. So when a remedy goes through the process of from its original crude substance, that substance is extracted from its natural source, whether it's a plant, mineral, animal, metal. We have remedies made from all of those things. It goes through a process of dilution and succussion. So as you see here, we start, let's say, with a plant remedy. It goes through the mortar and pestle. We grind it, and we use a little alcohol, and eventually get one liquid drop. And that drop is diluted. There are different scales, but if we're working on a C scale, C stands for 100. And so we have one drop of, let's say we're making a remedy out of chamomile. So we have one liquid drop of chamomile, and then we dilute that with 99 drops of water. And then it's called succussion. And the succussion is a vigorous shaking and banging of the remedy. So one drop to 99 drops, and then succussion. And then you take one drop of that to another 99 drops and succussion again. So there's 1C, then we have a 2C, and then one drop of that to another with another succussion. Then you have a 3C, and it goes so on and so forth, each time exponentially becoming more and more diluted. So yes, the more it goes through this process, the stronger, the longer active, the deeper healing, and the fewer doses are needed at the higher the potency. I'm sure we may get some questions around here, but I'm going to keep moving on a little bit, and we can answer some questions later. Or if you can just jump in if you have one. Why does this work? There's some theories about water and the principles, the properties of water. I mean, water is an amazing substance that we probably know very little about and what it can do. Scientists are studying that more. The memory of water, and water is imprinted with the blueprint of the original substance. So there was a scientist, Jacques Ben-Veniste, in 1988. He published in Nature magazine, he was a French immunologist, about the ability of water to retain the memory of the substance previously diluted, even after serial dilutions. There was also another scientist that did a lot of work in this area. His name is Luc Montagnier. He won the Nobel Prize in 2008 for the discovery of HIV. And he's done also a lot of work on this subject of the memory of water. He claims that, quote, the DNA emits weak electromagnetic waves that cause structural changes in water that persist even in extremely high dilutions. So, end quote. So water is imprinted with the blueprint of the original substance. So I think that's all I'm going to say about that. But some people who may be more interested there, I can definitely lead you to some more websites that have information on the scientists who are studying these explanations of why homeopathy works. It's very interesting. Okay, so one of the next principle of homeopathy is the totality of symptoms. So individuals' physical, mental, emotional states are thoroughly examined in the interview. Different remedies given to different people for the same illness based on individual particular physical, mental, emotional symptoms. So meaning I may see 5 different children with chronic ear infections, and each of those 5 may get a different remedy based on the totality of their symptoms. So is the pain on the right more? Is it on the left more? Do they have any other symptoms in their body? When did it start? What is their patterns of eating, sleeping, things like that? Getting a full picture of the totality of that person and finding a remedy so to treat both the specific symptoms and the total person. So treating the person. And this is why an intake for a homeopathy session generally takes some time, because we really go deeply and in breath to get a full picture of a person, to find that right remedy out of thousands that are available. Okay. Okay, here's a quote from the Talmud that says, "The things above are as the things below. The macrocosm and the microcosm. Physical state is linked to the psychological and the spiritual state, and both of those are linked to the remedy state." So, yeah, it's the principle of self-similarity, that each part is similar to the whole. And the work of homeopathy and as a homeopath is trying to find the essence of what that pattern is in a person, what's important, and what characterizes the pattern of the illness and the person, and then knowing which substance from nature is a match. It's like a matchmaker with the remedy and the person of the pattern that is the pattern of the illness. And I just want to say, when that's done well and a good match is found, that's when we really see profound healing and sometimes miraculous results, I can say. So how do we know what from nature actually, what the properties of a substance are in making these matches, in what properties each substance has and the healing properties? Well, it's a very defined experiment that we do, which is called a homeopathic proving. And the proving goes back all the way to Hahnemann. He did provings back a couple hundred years ago. We still have that information today. It still even is used. So homeopathy is a growing body of knowledge based on these provings that we do, that happen. And so a substance becomes a remedy by doing double-blinded studies called these proof experiments on healthy individuals. And the first proving was done by Hahnemann of the cinchona bark, which was used and still is used. Is quinine is used as one of the main remedies for malaria. Hahnemann did this proving because he became a medical translator. He was a linguist. He knew over 8 languages, and in the time he gave up his practice of medicine because of the barbaric practices of the day, and he became a translator of medical texts. This was before he discovered homeopathy, and he was translating Cullen's Medical Encyclopedia, and he read and translated that the quinine, the cinchona bark, was a cure for malaria because it tasted bitter. And he wrote translator's note. Doesn't agree, because there are other things that are bitter that don't cure malaria. So what he did, as the story goes, is that he ingested the bark himself, and he induced a kind of a poisoning of it on himself, and with high intermittent fevers and all of the digestive symptoms that mimic malaria. And this is how he sort of came up with realized the law of similars and slowly developed the science. Okay. Let's see here. So let's see. So remedies are made from thousands of different natural substances. We have remedies made from all the elements in the periodic table, different animal remedies and plant remedies. Maybe 70% of remedies are made from plants. But even something like a plant remedy, an animal remedy, it's such a minimum amount that goes to be making thousands and thousands of remedies that it's extremely environmentally conscious. A remedy works by prompting the inner healing capacity of the individual, giving the immune system a chance to restore health and equilibrium. Through the law of similars, the remedy catalyzes the vital force out of stagnation and into dynamic action. So we say that the remedy actually is not doing the work itself. The remedy is giving the informational medicine, and it's stimulating the body's own inner vital force, own inner healing capacity. And oftentimes people come back after taking a remedy and they feel better and they say, well, I feel like I just got better. It doesn't feel, it feels very natural because the remedy helps, actually just helps clear out of the way the illness or the disease, let's say, of the vital force, so that the inner life force can take over and their truest nature can come through their healthy being. And that's what the remedy does. It's similar to, let's see here. Similar to the remedy resonates with the same vibration of what the person is vibrating, how the illness of that person, the vibrational state of the person, similar to how a C note on the piano reverberates with another C note that's played, or like a tuning fork. The two things resonate when they're similar. And there's also a principle in physics called the principle of resonance. So homeopathy can be used for acute illnesses and first aid, as well as chronic illness and epidemics. And I want to just take a minute to go over the difference between these, as I think it's important. For acute illness and first aid, I encourage people to empower themselves and help your families and yourselves by you can purchase remedies at those natural food stores, or you can purchase a first aid kit and have it in the house, and learn how to use basic first aid remedies for acute illnesses. It's very practical and useful for raising a family, with kids, all kinds of things you can use. So let's see here. There was something. What did I do with that here? So first aid types of situations or acute illnesses like flus, fevers, burns, stings, sprains, rashes, trauma, surgery, sunburn, fractures, sunstroke, poison ivy, concussions, inflammation, ear infections. Those types of things you can, learn, buy a book, learn about remedies, and get to know how to use a nice handful of remedies for yourself and your family. When it comes to chronic illness, that's when you really want to work with a professional, because things are a little more complicated in that case. Acute illness, by definition, is one that can come on and will, in a short period of time, resolve itself. Whereas chronic illness goes on more indefinitely and it's more complicated in the body. So even if you maybe get lucky and you look things up and you find a good remedy and it may work, it sometimes goes through a process where some things get better and other things get worse. And one has to know how to interpret the unfolding of that process when working with chronic illness, which is why I don't really advise treating oneself for that. You want by yourself or for your family. But for acute and first aid, absolutely. So I did say I did say ear infections under acute illness, but more often than not, ear infections do tend to be a chronic situation with acute exacerbations. So if there's a chronic situation where there's multiple ear infections, then that would be something you would want to consult with. But like chronic examples of chronic illness, things like anxiety, depression, eczema, behavioral issues, rosacea, warts, asthma, arthritis, migraines, ulcers, PMS, infertility, ulcers, things like that. So those are all things that you can work with with a trained, certified homeopath, and there are websites online that you can go to, like the CHC, the Council for Homeopathic Certification, what's the board certification for homeopaths, and the Registered Society of Homeopaths. and those, that's called the North American Society of Homeopaths, NASH. Those are both good registries, and you can find someone locally or find someone that works. A lot of people, like I do, work at a distance as well, through Skype and things like that. But you do want to find, check what the credentials are of someone, because in most states, homeopathy is not a license. So you really have to do your own due diligence as a consumer and know what the credentials and what the education is of the person that you're seeing. And lastly, I want to talk about epidemics, is that homeopathy historically it gained most of its fame throughout the globe in epidemic illnesses throughout history. And it's actually very effective. It's a bit of a slightly different method when you're treating thousands of people. And hopefully, that's not necessary too often, but it does happen. And through history, homeopathy has been extremely effective in things like yellow fever, scarlet fever, cholera, typhoid, malaria, influenza like the Spanish flu of 1918, and even today with HIV/AIDS. So we can talk more about that if you'd like. And I'm just going to go through 3 basic remedies, since this is the ABCs of homeopathy. I thought I'd do A for aconite. It's a bit small there. If you can see it, it says that, so aconite is an acute remedy, one of the most acute remedies. It's great to have it in the house. I would say aconite is one of the top handful of remedies that I wouldn't want to go without. It's often used for the beginning of acute illnesses within 24 to 48 hours, a sudden onset where you suddenly you get sick, like maybe you caught a chill, or there was a sudden upset, a fright, some kind of bad news or something, or like I said, a cold, often in the winter, it's like a cold wind, and then suddenly onset of, oh my gosh, I don't feel it. So that can be like some anxiety, fears, restlessness, and there can sometimes be like pain. So it could be a cold, it could be something like an inflammation, a throat inflammation, a ear infection, a bronchitis, or like a cystitis, often with a lot of pain. And accompanied with these symptoms, there's often like a high fever and a lot of thirst. So again, you remember you have to, with homeopathy, you want to try to take the full picture. It's the totality of symptoms and try to match the remedy with the complete person, not only in their symptoms, but what's characteristic about this person, what's characteristic about this particular illness. And some of those things you can read, like, so it's worse at night. Sometimes just before midnight, they can wake up and suddenly feel scared. And feel like shock or panic. So with aconite, it's you may see these things, or you may just see a couple of these things. You may just say, "Wow, that happened quickly." Something she was fine this morning, and now suddenly she's not. Aconite could be a good very first remedy to try if there's at the very beginning of an illness, and it can very often nip it in the bud. So, love that remedy. And now to the bees. We've got belladonna. And in some ways, aconite and belladonna are similar in that they are both often used for very acute onset illnesses. And they both can be used for fevers. So they can sometimes be confused. Belladonna has a kind of violent onset as well. Often a lot of heat up in the head, a kind of flushed red face, throbbing head, throbbing, pulsating pain, and with like a kind of dilated, shining eyes and pupils. There's a lot of redness, burning heat, hot to the touch, so radiating heat, and there's a kind of strange, like so in homeopathy, sometimes there's like we call them strange, rare, peculiars. There's symptoms that are characteristic for specific remedies. They're like dead giveaways. And sometimes we get lucky and the person may say, so in this one, it's belladonna. So it's your child can suddenly say, have a fever and say, I want it. Can I eat that lemon, for example? And you say, oh, that's a little strange. That reminds me of belladonna. So in the mental side, with belladonna, it can be very uncharacteristic where suddenly they're like screaming or kicking, biting, like they're very uncomfortable, and there's a kind of a violent onset with this remedy. So it says angel when well and then devil when sick, and they want to just it's a lie in a dark room. So maybe like a migraine with a throbbing, pulsing headache, red flushed face, lying in a dark room. They feel worse from noise and light. And then there's aggravation times of 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. So it can be used for like a sore throat that's very red, throbbing pain with maybe fever, or like an earache that's red, sunstroke, and different inflammations. Can you hear me? Someone saying connection.
We hear you here.
Okay.
Is there anyone else? I don't know. That's
Okay.
Julia.
Okay. So I'll keep going then.
Yeah, I think keep going. We hear on this end. I'm not sure if there's someone else who has a problem. Maybe we'll just.
Okay. So third for ABC, we're on the C is chamomilla. It's a beautiful little flower plant. We all know this one, and you drink, chamomile tea, and the properties are similar homeopathically. Soothing remedy. So the number one remedy for teething. I honestly don't really know what people do for their kids without this remedy when they're teething. It's hard to imagine because I've always used it. But I would definitely say if we're struggling with that, it's the number one go-to remedy for teething. There are other remedies that can be used like calc-phos, pulsatilla, but chamomilla is a go-to. And it's not only for teething, it's also, well, I would say the most characteristic thing about chamomilla is very sensitive to pain, like intolerable of pain. So even a little pain just feels like a lot. And so it can be used for things like teething, labor pains. It's not going to take away the pain in labor completely, but it will make it a lot easier to cope, with with pain, and also with period cramps, things, menses. So along with the totality of symptoms, you may see, let's say in children that are teething, for example, you can see green, slimy, sour stool. That, like I said, oversensitivity to pain, unbearable. There can be extreme irritability. So you can see this in different situations where with that intolerance of pain, there's also real irritability, angry, demands relief from the pain, but then nothing helps. And then don't want to be touched, don't want to be spoken to, desires to be carried. I'm sure most parents here can relate to this sometime or other with their children. Babies that whine, scream, are unconsolable. They demand something, then they throw it. They don't know what they want. And there can be like there's this characteristic symptom of chamomile with one red cheek. And then there can also be often ailments from coffee, people who are sensitive to coffee. And this remedy can work off to kind of help those symptoms if there's a kind of irritability that occurs after drinking coffee, and as well as like feeling angry. So these are 3 remedies, just examples of how you can go about studying a new remedy. You want to know about like what are the main things that it can work for? What are the times of day that they see aggravating? What are the things? What's the mental picture? What is the overall picture of this remedy? So you get to learn them over time. And the more you use homeopathy, you get to know them more and more, and they become like friends. Here's my website, theremedycenter.com, where you can find information about me and my practice. And I have a new website that I'm currently building So that will be coming hopefully soon. And my email address where you can contact me if you have any questions or you need help with anything. I would be happy to hear from you. So I want to just answer any questions that anyone may have and clarify anything. Anyone?
Amy, thank you so much. We're going to see if everyone wants to just type their questions below. If you have any questions for Amy, you can just type in the chat and it will come up on the large screen. I wanted to ask you, Amy, do you have any specific book or is there a particular website that you know, are fond of in terms of finding the correct remedies for acute and home care?
Right. The National Center for Homeopathy has a lot of really good information. I think the largest website out there for the general public. As far as
which one is that? Which one is?
it's the National Center for Homeopathy, NCH. The NCH. What else? There is this book is let's see here. There's one called Homeopathy for Pregnancy, Birth, and Your Baby's First Year by Miranda Castro that I like.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
Yeah. There's so many, really. You have to. There's Kate Birch has a book on Amazon, which is very good for acute, like first aid. Kate Birch, Birch, on Amazon. You have to flip through and see which one you like. There's what speaks to you, but I think those are good starters. And like I said, the National Center for Homeopathy.
So I'm going to ask you also, like, I know that on the bottles, the little bottles you see in the health food stores, first of all, is there, two questions really, is there a particular company that you recommend people, they can buy like a starter kit? I know there's like Hahnemann Laboratories, or is there a particular company that people should be, is there such a thing as better quality or less quality?
Yeah.
And I know like myself, when I've gone in and I see there's like all these little tiny descriptions on the bottles, and then I've asked others who are like more well versed in homeopathy, they're like, oh, don't even follow those little descriptions, that will just confuse you. So I don't know if you have any insight about a company and also the little descriptions on the bottles. Should we just ignore those, or?
So those descriptions on the bottles come from the fact that homeopathic remedies are FDA regulated. So I guess somehow by law they have to have descriptions. We know that the remedies can treat a whole host of things, a wide range of things. Often they choose a few, maybe the most things that they're known for that remedy, what it's known for, and put them on the bottle. But by no means does it mean that it's the only thing that you can use it for. So I would say, I don't really pay attention too much to what's on the bottle. I mean, there might be some truth to it for sure, but it can confuse you because you think, well, I thought it does this, and here it says that. It's more advisable to go by the books than what it says on the bottle. Okay. As far as where to buy remedies, and there are more professional grade and then more consumer grade. So the most commonly found remedies are the blue tube, the borons, and those are good. They can be found at things like Whole Foods. Personally, I do use all professional grade in my pharmacy that I have in my office. So there's a pharmacy that I mostly buy from. It's called Helios. It's in England. Here in the United States, you've got Hahnemann Laboratories is a well-known professional pharmacy. It's in California. There's Washington Homeopathics, which has been around for many, many years, decades, and they have a lot of good kits as well. Helios also has kits. I do also sell kits if somebody wants it. And what I do is I have a package where it's with the kit and a session, so I can really teach you how to use a lot of the remedies in your kit. We go through them, and that's something, or either that or together with helping you through the first acute that you have, in the family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So you
so that's
sell home kits.
I
You
do.
actually sell. Oh,
Yeah,
amazing.
you can get in touch with me, and I can help get you that. And like I said, I combine that with a teaching session because I think it can be a little overwhelming at first, and knowing what to do and how to use the remedies and which ones. So I think it to help handhold a little bit at the beginning. So yeah, but there are others as well. Like I said, Washington Homeopathics and yeah.
Okay, I'm going to publish someone's question. I see now they're just popping up. So they would like information on water memory and salts, it seems like.
Okay, so for the water memory, I do know that the Homeopathy Research Institute, HRI, I guess that would be hri.org, I think is the website, but it's Homeopathy Research Institute. It's the foremost like hub of homeopathic research. It's been around for 10 years now. They're just celebrating their 10-year anniversary. Um, I actually am quite good friends with the CEO. She and I were classmates together in school back in England. I went to school for homeopathy in London and graduated, over 20 years ago. And she now does that, and it's based in London, and they do right now. They're running a lab in Germany, a water lab, where they are researching this question as to what is the mechanism of action of homeopathy and what does the water do. So I would say go on to the HRI website and do some digging. You may be able to find some of their, you know, they certainly would be the place to find all of the latest research on homeopathy in general around the world, the best researchers and doctors that are doing that work. Okay, so the salt. I think you mean tissue salts, like the tissue salts, like the biochemical salts, the Schussler salts. Is that what you mean?
I'm not sure. Would you like, she just wanted information on memory and salts. But there's another question here.
Questions. But okay, I think there are something called tissue salts. So like things like calc-phos 6x and like silica 6x, cali-phos, things like that. So those are kind of those are salts that are naturally found in the body, and they're very, very low potency homeopathic remedies. There's 12 of them, and they're almost like they're sort of on the border between nutritional level and homeopathic, and they can be used to help balance the metabolic processes in the body, and they are good. So that answers your question. So what are my thoughts on bowel noses and matronals? They're great. Bowel noses and matronals. So there's different categories of homeopathic remedies. We have there's the remedies, then we have a category called nosodes. Nosodes are homeopathic remedies that are made from diseased substances, so there's a remedy, for example, like tuberculina, which is a commonly used remedy, and it's made from the sputum of a tubercular patient. And it sounds like, oh my gosh, why would anybody ever take that? But actually, in homeopathic form, it's safe, and it's very commonly used for people that have a lot of chest symptoms. It's also goes along with the full totality of symptoms of other things as well, like a restlessness and other things. So that's nosodes, and bowel nosodes specifically are remedies made from a disease substance, specifically of the bowel, like salmonella, things like that, and it's a part of homeopathy that is a little more advanced. I wouldn't really recommend necessarily for the beginner that you get involved with bowel nosodes. It's a bit it's a little bit more. Well, there's specific indications of when you would use it, but at times they can be very effective for things like food allergies, sometimes eczema, chronic inflammation, like a lot of mucus, things like that. So Yeah, I do use bowel nosodes in my practice. And the matrodonals are a set of remedies made from what we call like uh, remedies made from, well, a lot of what's called sarcodes. So we have nosodes, which are a grouping of remedies made from disease substances. And then we have sarcodes, which are made from remedies made from parts like parts of the body, but healthy tissue. So it's you can have like a sarcode of the lung, or you can have like a sarcode of the brain. Or a common remedy, for example, is folliculinum, which is made from the follicle, like a female follicle. Often a remedy that can be used for women that have been on the pill and have had a lot of repercussions from that, like whether it may be something like infertility or depression, various things that actually do happen, but it's not so commonly known, but that does happen, as well as mental emotional symptoms that can go along with this. And so a remedy like folliculinum, which is a sarcode, is used. So the matrodonal remedies are considered sarcodes because they're made from things like mother's milk, um, umbilical cord, amniotic fluid. We have remedies made from all of these things, and that's a particular grouping. It's kind of a category, um, and it's very nice. I've done a lot of work with them. A lot of those remedies were originally proven. Remember, I talked about the provings, how the experiments we do. So a lot of them are proven by a close colleague and teacher of mine, Elise Timmerman, out of the Netherlands. Um, and so I think it can be very profound and um, can come into purpose in a way that is very deep and healing. Sometimes in ways that other remedies can't do, which we know that to the mother. So we can imagine it's so powerful.
Okay, so I guess we'll just, if we have time for a few more questions. This Leah Sorkin was asking if adults, or I guess children, just individuals with autism, if they can benefit from homeopathy.
Yeah, for sure that people with autism benefit. It can certainly help with different functions and different maybe some types of limitations there or discomfort they might be experiencing, to help raise that level of function. And I have done worked with many with great success. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. And I think the last question we have is, can it be used to reverse chronic disease such as autoimmune conditions?
Oh, hi, Karen. To reverse chronic disease such as autoimmune conditions. So that's a pretty general question. Each individual is so different, and when it comes to autoimmune disease, it's complex, um, and sometimes it's what we would do is what I would do. The way I would approach that if someone comes in is to, of course, take a full case history, which usually I leave 2 hours for. It's very in depth and complete. And unravel all the physical symptoms and what are the emotional components and when it started, and if there are different suppressive elements like medications that it may have suppressed things, and really try to understand like what's happening in that particular person. So the short answer is yes. It can be used to heal autoimmune and other chronic illnesses for sure, but but it's so individual, and there are many factors at play as to there as to why a person may what's happened and what may need to happen in order for that person to heal, including life situations or there. So I want to say in general yes, but it's especially with it's a question like autoimmune, it's very individualized. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much. I just want to thank you, Amy, for being here today and let everyone know, Amy has been practicing homeopathy for 25 years. She's a registered nurse. She has a practice in New Jersey, and it's called the Remedy Center. And this is in Morristown, New Jersey, and you can contact her. She has an email. Your email is, it was at the end of the
at mac.com.
Awesome, amazing. And I think that was so helpful. And I hope anyone who, wants to further have any further questions, they can definitely, reach out to your practice, your remedy center. And I really appreciate you coming here today. I appreciate everyone coming on and participating. And we hope to see you all soon. And thank you again, really.
Good luck with everyone. I encourage you to explore homeopathy for your family. You can do it. And you learn slowly but surely. Thank you again for inviting me. I would love to come help anytime, share more information.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay, all the best.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.